Number 10. Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus has been involved in a ton of scandals over the years, varying from super serious to little tiffs. She may not have meant to, but she followed suit with her fellow Disney stars and landed in hot water time and time again. I swear, the moment you are casted in a Disney show, you have an 80% chance of being arrested. Because of her public problems and overall chaotic antics, it should be no surprise that Miley is banned from China. Shockingly, the Chinese government didn't take offense to her doing illegal substances or dancing in her birthday suit on the wrecking ball. No, they were upset with her because of a picture she took where she was imitating Asian people by pulling back the skin around her eyes. You know, one of the most offensive things on the planet? The Organization for Chinese Americans had strong words to say about the picture, but the Chinese government ramped things up to 1 million. They decided to straight up ban Miley Cyrus from ever entering the country. That's fair. The Chinese foreign minister got involved, telling the press that Miley made it clear that she is no friend to China or anyone else of East Asian descent, going on to say that the country had no interest in polluting the minds of the children. Miley actually clapped back and said that the media took the photo out of context. In what context is pulling your eyes back okay? Number 9. Brad Pitt. Fun fact, if you are an actor and wish to do anything in China, just try avoiding Tibet as a workplace. The Chinese government is apparently very sensitive about the region and is neurotic about anything having to do with the Dalai Lama. Brad Pitt found this out the hard way. In 1997, Brad starred in the film 7 Years in Tibet, playing the 14th Dalai Lama's tutor. Chinese officials found the film to be offensive, especially because of how it portrayed the Chinese occupation of Tibet, almost as if their government thought the movie was going to be some action thriller where the Dalai Lama was a bad guy. The officials decided that the filmmakers should be punished for their work, so they barred the main cast and crew of the film from ever entering China again, which included Brad Pitt. That ban was in effect until 2016, when after 19 years, the government decided that he learned his lesson. Considering how well American films do in China these days, it's kind of a no-brainer to let Brad Pitt back into the country. Number 8. Selena Gomez. For a lot of people, meeting the Dalai Lama is a privilege and just really cool experience, but for former Disney wizard Selena Gomez, it meant that she would no longer be welcome in China. While in rehearsals for We Day in Vancouver 2014, Selena had the opportunity to meet the Dalai Lama. Someone snapped a pic, and Selena, being who she is, decided to share that picture with her Instagram and Twitter followers. The funny thing is that the ban was not an immediate thing. It actually took a while for outrage to grow. In fact, she wasn't even aware that there were any issues until 2 years later when she was planning tour dates in China. Her website announced shows scheduled for Guangzhou and Shanghai one day, but one day those dates suddenly vanished. The government got around to enacting a ban on her for the 2-year-old picture. It's funny to think that a bunch of officials in China sat around a table trying to decide what to do about Selena Gomez. They really did not have much of a reason to make a fuss out of one picture, and more than likely spent a solid amount of time just scrolling through pictures of Selena being like, I don't know, is this one bad too? I don't really know anymore, guys. Number 7. Justin Bieber. In 2017, it was announced that Justin would no longer be allowed to step foot into mainland China due to his bad behavior. Those are the exact words used by the government. In a statement from the ministry, it stated that the country would not allow celebrities who have engaged in bad behavior to step foot on their soil. The statement claimed that Justin Bieber was a gifted singer, but he's also a controversial young foreign singer. They hoped that Justin would mature so that he can continue to improve on his own words, actions, and truly become a singer beloved by the public. To be fair to China, Justin has not been the chillest dude on the planet. In 2014, he shared a picture of himself visiting the controversial Yasukuni Shrine in Tokyo. The shrine honors fallen warriors and pays tribute to convicted criminals. In China and South Korea, the shrine is seen as a symbol of Japan not being sorry for its empire past. He caused a ton of outrage and was forced to apologize and took down the photo, but deleting something doesn't mean that everything's gonna be all hunky-dory. In fact, it was very hunky-batty. Now that doesn't work. Number 6. Harrison Ford. Guess what, y'all? Harrison is just another celebrity on this list who just had to mention Tibet on the air. Despite this man spending most of his career saving lives or time traveling, his greatest achievement yet was making the Chinese government so angry that he was blacklisted from entering the country altogether. Ford is a longtime advocate for human rights and has been outspoken about China specifically and their occupation of Tibet, having met the Dalai Lama thanks to his wife working working on the script for the film Kundun, Harrison's views were altered in 1992, and in 1995 he testified before the United States Senate Foreign Relations Committee about the need for Tibetan independence and detailed all of China's human rights violations. He really made the government mad, like so mad. Chinese officials banned him from entering the country along with his then wife, Melissa Matheson. 5. Sharon Stone. A name that will continue to be the source of many bans is the Dalai Lama. You'll see a pattern. In 2008, Sharon Stone was talking to the press at the Cannes Film Festival when she started making comments about a very serious Sichuan earthquake. The comments were not nice. She didn't say that we should help people, no. Instead, this woman was certain that the earthquake was caused by bad karma built up by the Chinese for oppressing the Dalai Lama. That's something someone actually said. The earthquake was not some little thing that did a bit of damage, it took the lives of close to 90,000 people. And there was Sharon Stone, the woman who played the bad guy in 2004's Catwoman, telling people that it was probably some form of cosmic retribution. Who would have guessed? That's insensitive. It doesn't matter what she believes, blaming a natural disaster and the loss of lives on karma is just silly. So when Australia was on fire in 2020, was that because an Australian lady called me a bad name at a bar that year? No. Maybe. Who knows? To the surprise of no one at all, the Chinese government was fuming and decided to issue a ban to the 90s starlet. Not of her as a person, but of all of her films. Anything she had starred in or would ever star in would not be shown in China, which is probably part of the reason that you don't see Sharon Stone anymore. She later apologized for the comments, but that doesn't change the fact that the movie Ants can never be enjoyed by a Chinese audience ever again. What a shame. Number 4. Richard Gere. When people saw Richard in Pretty Woman, they had no idea that in a few short years this man would turn into some kind of a humanitarian hero. During the 1993 Academy Awards, Richard issued an impromptu speech about the human rights issues that China had inflicted on Tibet. Now, it was an interesting choice considering that he wasn't accepting an award. He was actually presenting an award for Best Art Direction, but he decided to skip the preamble comments and took the time to instead spread the word about Tibet. The Academy producers were furious and vowed to ban Richard from ever attending any future award ceremonies, but he didn't stop at the Academy though. Richard continued to vouch for Tibet and his longtime friend, the Dalai Lama. Chinese officials took a disliking to Richard and banned him from entering the country, which had a devastating impact on his career. Since like a third of profit margins from film come from China, major studios stopped casting Richard, fearing distribution repercussions from the Chinese government. Number 3. Bjork. Bjork is not just a talented musician with a fun name, but she also ventured into multiple jobs and lifestyles over the years. In 2000, she appeared in Lars von Trier's Dancer in the Dark, a film that did not cause her to be banned from China. It was actually a live show 8 years later that sealed the deal. During a 2008 Shanghai concert, Bjork ended her performance of the song Declare Independence by shouting, "Tibet! Tibet!" In the grand scheme of life, that doesn't really sound like a lot, right? It's not really that bad. Well, wrong. When you actually break down the lyrics of the song, it's all about countries gaining their independence, making their own flags and currency, and battling against oppression. I'm not sure if you've noticed at this point, but China doesn't like it when you call them out on stuff. Needless to say, they were not thrilled to be a part of this one. The government quickly issued a statement. Bjork and other performance artists threatened Chinese national views. Suddenly, a ton of musicians were banned from China, and Bjork was of course first and foremost. But this was ridiculous. I mean, Bob Dylan was even... No, that one makes sense. Number 2, Anastasia Lin. In 2016, beauty queen Anastasia Lin starred in a Canadian-Chinese film about the human rights violations in China. This was not the first time that she was involved in Chinese human rights. For most of her adult life, Lin has been an outspoken critic of China, and the film was just the most recent example. While this was okay for a while, China decided they had had enough. Chinese officials banned Lin from entering the 65th annual Miss World pageant, which was being held in China. Lin did not give up and planned to enter the country by requesting on-demand visa when her flight landed in China. The strategy was basically just show up anyway and hope that the government won't want to cause a scene. You know, the same thing that people do when the same thing that you do when you try sneaking into a party that you weren't invited to. The government, however, did not bend. The organizers of the next pageant told her that she could compete in 2016 under one condition. She could not mention human rights during the pageant. Lin caved and followed through. She is still pursuing human rights though to this day. And at number 1, Lisa from Blackpink. K-pop fans will surely recognize Lisa from the band Blackpink. I'm not going to pretend for a single second that I listen to K-pop, so please bear with me. Lisa was not banned for something that she actually did, but instead of somewhere that she went with some of her fellow singers. Lisa and a few of her bandmates attended the Crazy House in Paris, a well-known burlesque show featuring some pretty risque performances. The group were bashed by government officials in China, and their social media accounts were taken down as a result. They are no longer able to post on China's largest platform, Weibo, and so far it's looking like this may be the last that people see of Lisa. Maybe. Again, I don't know.
Number 10, Jennifer Aniston nearly quit. Jennifer was the last to sign for the final 10th season of Friends, and she very nearly didn't return at all. Part of this was down to her busy career because at this point, she was definitely one of the most famous of the Friends cast. She had several movies on the slate. She later revealed that she was debating not coming back because she had a couple of issues that she was dealing with at the time. Jennifer said that she wanted to end the show when people still loved them and they were on a high. She also questioned herself about how long she really wanted to play Rachel. Jennifer obviously eventually agreed to the final season, but she is the reason why it's the shortest season, because she only agreed to return if it was cut short. Luckily for everyone, she decided to stay and felt bittersweet about the final season, and in the end she found herself wishing that it could have continued on. Most of the cast members' careers have crashed and burned after Friends ended, but Jennifer Aniston was a rare exception. She went on to star in several Hollywood blockbusters like Bruce Almighty, Break Up, Marley and Me, Just Go With It, Horrible Bosses, and We're the Millers, all of which were very successful at the box office. Number 9, Matthew struggled with substances. As we know, Matthew Perry's sudden death has completely shocked the world. The beloved actor was found at his home after an apparent drowning. He was only 54 years old, and his passing was an absolute tragedy. Many of the Friends cast struggled to deal with their newfound fame, and for Matthew, this led to problems with addiction, which he has been extremely open about in his memoir. Although he said that he was never drunk on set, he did admit to being painfully hungover to the point that everyone became aware of. After more than one stint in rehab, he managed to get clean, and then he became very passionate about helping other people who were struggling. Just last year, he revealed that he and Jennifer Aniston had stayed in each other's lives, and they remained in close contact. He said that it was actually Jennifer who confronted him first about his addictions during the filming of the show. Apparently, she approached him during a break and told him, "We know you're drinking." And looking back on that moment, Matthew thought that it was very scary, because in his own mind, he thought he was doing a perfectly fine job of hiding his habits from his co-stars. At a certain point, they all knew that he was in trouble, and they did their best to support him. Number 8, Lisa Kudrow sued the show. Lisa Kudrow's manager Scott Howard sued her in 2008, year after she ended her contract with him, and 4 years after Friends ended. Howard claimed that Lisa owed him residuals for the reruns of Friends and other projects that she had worked on while under his management, to the tune of 10% of everything that she got. He stopped paying him when the contract was dissolved and argued that the 10% was only payable when he was managing her. Eventually, he won the case in 2014, and the judge awarded him $1.6 million. Of course, for someone who earned $1 million per episode for the final seasons of Friends, that figure wouldn't have put too much of a dent in her bank account. In a statement, Lisa's attorney said, "The jury's verdict is merely one step in the legal process. This case will ultimately be resolved at the appellate level. Mrs. Kudrow has faith in the judicial system, and she believes that the eventual outcome of this contractual dispute will be in her favor." In a statement of his own, Scott Howard's attorney said, "What generally happens now with unsophisticated actress clients is they overpay for filing a frivolous appeal that has no chance for success." So this legal battle got extremely messy in the end, and it must have been embarrassing to be a part of. Number 7, David Schwimmer went into hiding. As we know, David struggled with the fame that came from being such a huge hit at such a young age. Of the main 6 actors in Friends, he's the one who has shied away from the limelight the most. Although he continued to work after the show ended, he spent many years preferring to do voice work, directing, producing, and has been candid about struggling to find a way to continue acting as he's such a huge celebrity. He said, "It was pretty jarring and it messed with my relationships with other people in a way that took years. I need to kind of adjust to and become comfortable. It made me want to hide under a baseball cap and not be seen. So I was trying to figure out, how do I be an actor in this new world, in this new situation?" Friends was such a huge hit from the moment it premiered that it didn't just bring fame to its stars, it brought a mega level of fame that is hard to understand. stand. For David, it was just too hard to deal with. So much so that it didn't just affect him, but his relationships and other people as well. He was also an actor who, as a part of his craft, liked to be anonymous and observe people out in the world. But of course, he simply could not do that anymore once he reached that certain level of success. Number 6, Matt LeBlanc was arrested. Before he became famous, Matt was already getting used to that crazy party lifestyle that most people associate with being a celebrity. After Friends was finished, he admitted that he was arrested for drunk driving twice. He said, "When I was young and stupid, I wasn't driving fast, just crooked." This came up when he was cast as one of the hosts of the new Top Gear, and fans were not sure whether a history of reckless driving was a good thing when it came to presenting a show about cars. Matt dismissed the incidents as a product of his age, although he has said that he's grateful the press never got a hold of his mugshots. While his drunk driving record happened before fame and fortune came to him, he also got into some pretty dark times when it came to dealing with his newfound fame. He nearly had a nervous breakdown due to the intensity of working on Friends, especially when the show came to an end. Speaking about that time, Matt said that for years and years he barely left the house because he was so burnt out. He wanted not to have a schedule and not to have to be anywhere. Luckily, he was in a position financially to be able to do that with all of his savings, but of course his agent was not too happy. Matt said that was a very dark time for him and it even led to a nervous breakdown. Number 5, Jennifer Aniston's wedding. While not every cast is close off screen, the cast of Friends was known for being friends in real life, as well as having a huddle before each episode started filming and negotiating their salaries as a team. The cast were often photographed out and about together, and they talked in interviews about how close they remained, even after the filming ended. I mean, Jennifer Aniston is even godmother to Courtney Cox's daughter. But in 2015, when she married Justin Theroux, she didn't invite any of her male co-stars to the ceremony. It was a small wedding with only 70 guests, but it did include Courtney and Lisa. Matthew Perry said that he was surprised he wasn't invited, but he was still very happy for the couple, despite the awkwardness of rejection. Hopefully though, he didn't take too much offense, considering that Jennifer didn't even invite her own mother to her wedding with Brad Pitt in 2000. In an interview with Ellen in 2018, she opened up about why she went years without talking to her mother Nancy Dow, saying, quote, "She was critical, she was very critical of me. Because she was a model, she was beautiful, magnificent, I wasn't, I never was." She added that her mother was very unforgiving and would often hold long grudges. They ended up reuniting several years later, and by Jen's marriage to her second husband Justin in 2015, they were finally on speaking terms. But the funny thing is, Nancy still wasn't invited to that wedding either. Number 4, David's neighbors hated him. Even stars have feuds with their neighbors, and David Schwimmer is no exception. In 2010, the star bought a property in the East Village townhouse from 1852, and of course the land that it stood on. But he decided that rather than renovate it to keep up the facade, he would just tear the whole thing down and start fresh. It's something that a lot of property developers are known for doing, but it's never really a popular decision. As a result, an anonymous neighbor left a message for him that was too big to ignore. For some reason, they decided it would really upset him if they spray painted in huge letters on the construction site fence. They wrote the words, "Ross is not cool," which is both hilarious and kind of genius because it actually echoed a storyline from the show, where Ross moves into a new building and becomes enemies with the neighbors by not chipping in for the maintenance man's retirement gift, which kind of goes to show you that life really does imitate art. There's no saying how David reacted to this, but you can imagine that he wouldn't be too pleased that the construction site had graffiti. Matthew's extreme anxiety. Matthew Perry admitted 2 years ago that he suffered from anxiety, which often came when he was trying to be as funny as he could in front of the live studio audience while they were filming Friends. The admission came up during the HBO Max Friends reunion with Jennifer Aniston, Courtney Cox, Lisa Kudrow, Matt LeBlanc, and David Schwimmer. Matthew said that trying to be great made him extremely nervous, and his co-stars at the reunion said they never had any idea that he was suffering on set because he always delivered such a fabulous performance while being seemingly at ease. He said, "To me, I felt like I was going to die if they didn't laugh. And it's not healthy for sure, but I would sometimes say a line and they wouldn't laugh and I would sweat and just go into convulsions if I didn't get the laugh I was supposed to get. I would freak out." His co-star Lisa was shocked to hear that. She said that Matthew was always such a cool cucumber, and he was one of the best on set, always delivering a line well as he played Chandler. Even though he never said anything to his co-stars back then, he felt this way every single night. And as we know now, his time on Friends was significantly profoundly impacted by his addiction. Memoir controversy. One surprise takeaway from Matthew Perry's autobiography was his apparent feelings towards Keanu Reeves, after he repeatedly questioned why other actors die while Keanu is still alive. Quote, "Why is it that original thinkers like River Phoenix and Heath Ledger die, but Keanu Reeves still walks among us?" Upon learning that another former co-star, Chris Farley, had died, he wrote, "I punched a hole through Jennifer Aniston's dressing room wall when I found out." And in the next line, he wrote, "Keanu Reeves still walks among us." Matthew would later apologize for the comments and then release a statement saying, "I'm actually a big fan of Keanu. I just chose a random name, my mistake. I apologize." But that wasn't it at all. There was also a lot of other interesting admissions in his memoir. Another thing he also revealed is that he asked out Jennifer Aniston before filming Friends. He said that the two of them were the only Friends stars who knew each other before the show, having met 3 years before through mutual acquaintances. In one part of the book he wrote, "I was immediately taken by her. How could I not be? And liked her. I got the sense that she was intrigued too, and maybe it was going to be something." Safe to say that fans were more than shocked by that revelation. And number 1, everyone was scared of Matt LeBlanc. Now Joey is far from a scary guy, but when Matt LeBlanc was first cast in the role, some of the other cast members were a little bit afraid of him. This fear was based off of what they knew about Matt himself, the fact that he was raised by a mechanic and had done a stint as a male model as well, and had done a stint as a male model, as well as what they knew about the character of Joey, who is known as a very forward womanizer. Jennifer Aniston in particular remembers being intimidated before she met him herself. She said, "I was scared of that type of guy. He thinks it's very funny now, and actually he can sit down and comfort me just like Courtney or Lisa could." So it's a good thing that Matt turned out to be just as much of a sweetheart as Joey was, despite a slightly rocky start.
Number 10. Joe Exotic. Joe was the Tiger King inside the confines of his Greater Wynnewood Exotic Animal Park, and so much more. The Netflix docuseries Tiger King followed the story of Joe and his team at the zoo, but it eventually morphed into a tale of lies, deception, and attempted slaying. For those who may not have seen the series or know who this guy is, how's that possible? Okay, go watch all 8 episodes in one go so you can feel the hate towards this man that we have. If you're a cat lover, please be warned, it's not going to be a good ride. Spoiler alert, the show culminated in Joe being convicted of 17 federal charges for the mistreatment of animals and 2 counts of attempting to pay someone to end another person's life. Joe is currently sitting in a cozy little cell in Oklahoma adorned in tiger rugs and sheets, I'm sure. Following the release and success of the documentary, Joe was actually unable to watch the show because no Netflix in prison. In order to gain the chance to see it and experience his 15 minutes of fame, Joe faked a cancer diagnosis, which meant that he would need to be moved to a proper facility that would probably have Wi-Fi. He even went so far as to get his fans to raise money for his so-called treatment, but it turned out that he had been faking the whole thing just like he faked his music career. Joe's cancer was actually an infection in his nether regions and a constant state of dehydration. It was never confirmed if he visited a real doctor or if he just diagnosed himself, which, considering the area, I don't know, that might be fun for him. I don't know. Number 9, Bradley Cooper. Bradley Cooper's directorial debut, A Star is Born, released in 2018, in which he also starred as Jackson Maine, the legendary country music maker with a taste for no-no juice. The most memorable scene came when Cooper's character and his co-star Lady Gaga take the stage at the Grammy Awards when Cooper starts urinating in his pants. It was one of the more important scenes in the movie, and Bradley decided to get a bit too method for his character. Throughout production, Bradley was seen stumbling on set. He always seemed worn out and drained of energy, even if it was the start of a new day. The cast and crew became worried that he might have been suffering depression or maybe some no-no juice-induced battle, which was kind of confirmed by Bradley himself. As the director, on top of being the star, people expected him to kick back into normal when he stepped behind the cameras, but that didn't happen, and instead he was still tipsy and tired while he was in his chair. So what was actually happening? Well, it turns out he wasn't battling anything, he was just getting so deep into his method acting and he just decided not to tell anybody about it. At the end of filming, he apologized for his behavior. He was simply trying to live in the mindset of Jackson and share the story through those eyes. Whatever he did, it paid off, as not only did the film receive multiple award nominations, including 2 wins for Best Original Song, but he got me to pay to watch it 3 times in theaters. People kept telling me they wanted to see it, and I love Lady Gaga, so it's a win-win. Number 8, Belle Gibson. Belle Gibson was a famous Australian influencer who was diagnosed with a brain tumor when she was 20. According to Belle, she ditched the traditional chemo route and instead decided to undergo alternative treatments like oxygen therapy and colonics. And somehow that worked. So her thousands of followers thought. In 2013, Belle used her story to launch a health and wellness app called The Whole Pantry. She made a public vow to donate 1/3 of her profits to charity and was able to secure a cookbook contract with acclaimed publishing company Penguin, and Apple pre-installed her iPhone app on people's Apple Watches. Like when U2's new album just showed up one day and you were like, hey, I don't remember doing that, what was I doing last night? Not long after her rise to fame, she claimed that the cancer had re-emerged basically everywhere and lamented about the short time that she had left with her family. But as it usually does, the truth set her free. According to media outlet Who, the app's proceeds never made it to the charity, and former friends of the blogger voiced their suspicions to the point that 2 journalists from Sydney decided to take on the case. After a fairly minimal amount of sleuth work, Gibson was forced to reveal that she had in fact faked her diagnosis for media coverage. The aftermath involved a civil suit being launched against Belle with Consumer Affairs Victoria, and a judge ruled that she might have been suffering some kind of psychological issues at the time, but was in fact found guilty of misleading and deceptive conduct. That's the thing you can sue people for? Cool, I gotta make some phone calls. Number 7, Brooke Ayers. This one's for all of you Real Housewife fans out there, specifically of Orange County. Leave it to a reality series to be the center of a lie. While it's never been fully proven if he did or did not have cancer, Brooks was caught red-handed lying about receiving treatment. According to People magazine, Ayers claimed to be diagnosed with stage 3 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma in 2013, and although he maintained face that he was sick, he spent much of that year's season dodging skepticism. Even his ex-girlfriend doubted him. In an attempt to prove his illness, Ayers apparently showed E! News documents that he says are from City of Hope Hospital, where he claimed to be a patient. The news outlet found a number of inaccuracies in the paperwork, and of course they contacted the hospital, and guess what? They'd never heard of him. Oh, shocker. Eventually, Brooke was forced to come clean and admitted that he forged the documents to avoid releasing the real paperwork. I love Hollywood apologies. After that happened, he was like, now I realize my actions were wrong and inexcusable. Hey man, who raised you not to know that faking cancer is messed up? That's bad. Number 6, Steve Ranazzisi. You may recognize Steve from his role as Kevin MacArthur in the hit FX series The League, or maybe from his many stand-up and television specials. But what you might not know is this guy is a liar. Steve first moved to the West Coast on the United States only 1 month following the events in New York in September in 2001. Now, when he first tried to break into the comedy scene, he claims that he found it difficult to fit in with his fellow comics, and he would indulge in his stories to get a word in conversationally. Essentially, he just introduced himself being from New York, and people at the time were like, oh, so were you there when it happened? And a lot like comedians do, he started telling them sarcastically that he did in fact escape one of the towers before they fell. But before he could say, nah, just kidding, the conversation had moved on and he was now seen as a survivor. Needless to say, his story made its way through the scene and his career seemed to be on the rise. Only a few short years later, he was the main cast member of The League, and he'd go on to write and star in several TV shows and films. But in 2009, Steve told Mark Maron his tall tale, adding details like, yeah, I worked on the 59th floor. Oh, it was tough getting out of there, man. I actually broke some bones in my hands. Owie. Not long after the public exchange, the New York Times did some detective work and found out that he had actually worked in Midtown Manhattan at the time, which was nowhere near the incident, just shattering the illusion of his story. He apologized for the lies and realized now that people probably would have just liked him fine without the lies. Wait, lying to people is wrong? Oh my god, my mind is blown. Number 5, AJ Finn. Dan Malroy is probably best known by his writing pseudonym AJ Finn and has a medical history faker than his best-selling book, The Woman in the Window. According to a profile written by The New Yorker, AJ just loves to lie his little head off, as over the years, Mallory has reportedly claimed to have brain cancer, including on a university application and to his colleagues at publishing houses both in America and across the pond in the UK. According to the profile, he also claimed to have lost his mother and his brother, but it turns out that they were both still very much alive. A phone call was recorded when Malroy received the news, and he dropped the line straight from a mystery novel. He said, "My God, I knew I'd get this call. I just didn't know if it was going to be from you or the FBI." Now, if you need proof that this dude's a writer, there you go. Malroy was forced to come clean, claiming his lies stemmed from the fact that his mother had an aggressive battle with cancer when he was young. He went on to say that he did all these things and that he did and said things that he normally wouldn't do. Why do people always pretend that they don't remember stuff when they happen? That makes you look more crazy. Number 4, Courtney Stodden. Courtney is a model, singer, and American media personality, and their claim to fame is, well, being married to the guy from the Green Mile that didn't wet the sponge. You gotta wet the sponge, man. Upon the breakup in 2020, 2020, Kourtney's new ex Doug Hutchison decided to throw Kourtney just right under the bus and reveal that they had faked a very dark situation in public. In 2016, Snowden's manager told People magazine that the couple had lost their baby before it was born and were taking their time to grieve. But according to Hutchison, the entire thing was actually faked so that the couple could scrape together some extra money while they were in a tight spot, and it was all Kourtney's idea. Yeah, I know I'm the husband, but technically we share everything, but hey, it's her fault. I had nothing to do with this. Snowden later said in an interview that they couldn't get a job to save their life in Hollywood, basically blacklisting them. They had burned through their savings, and times were tough. Well, if you want sympathy and money, go out in public and say that. Don't tell people that you lost a baby. That's worse. Number 3, Kim Zolciak. Another one for all the Real Housewives people out there. This time we go to Atlanta. Fans of the show may remember an epic battle between Kim and fellow series star Nene Leakes during the season 1 finale. Kim was making it seem like she had begun wearing a wig and claimed that it was because of her cancer treatments. During the episode, Kim tearfully claimed that she was very sick and her hair was falling out. Kim then mentions that a doctor friend sat her down and said that he was 90% sure that she had cancer. A medical professional on his time off. He was like, hey, listen, based on what you've told me, you probably got cancer. Yeah, no need to double check that. She made her fellow housewives believe the tall tale, but the suspicion began to grow when Andy Cohen asked her bluntly during an interview if she did in fact have it. She avoided the question and started crying, saying, I wouldn't walk around with a hairpiece if I didn't. Then she kept the ruse up long enough for Nene to make a rare on-camera apology to Kim before Cohen brought her on one more time and asked the same question. This time, Kim admitted that she didn't actually have cancer at all and that her symptoms ended up being from something completely different. Oh, so the doctor who you were probably partying with misdiagnosed you. Pfft, huh, shocking. Hey, I'm tired and my stomach hurts. Well, you have cancer. Number 2, Jussie Smollett. Jussie Smollett. In January of 2019, famous actor Jussie Smollett walked into a Chicago police precinct and reported that he had just been the victim of a hate crime. He told the police that 2 strangers started shouting racial slurs at him while one was yelling, the other was pouring the chemical bleach onto him before they both held him down and tied ropes around him. He claims to have suffered severe rope burns from this and that he was physically ill from the experience. As we all know, that isn't exactly the case. The so-called strangers were actually 2 brothers who worked with Jussie on the set of the hit series Empire, according to inside sources. Jussie paid the brothers $3,500 each to help him stage the event, planning every single detail right down to the precinct visit. The proof that all of this was a ruse made up for publicity was the fact that the altercation conveniently took place directly in front of security cameras. An investigation took place that found ample evidence that Smollett had set himself up. They found receipts from the ropes that were used during the altercations left in the assailant's home. Way to hide the evidence, boys. There was also security footage taken from a store where the brothers can actually be seen trying on and purchasing ski masks and gloves and hats, and I would pay anything to see that footage. It must be so good. At the end of the day, Jussie was forced to serve 150 days in prison and pay the Chicago Police Department over $300,000 for wasting their time and resources. So by the way, before anyone gets mad if I mispronounced his name, just remember he faked a hate crime. Maybe focus on that. And at number 1, Helena Bonham Carter. She's got bronchitis. Ain't nobody got time for that. Remember that one? Helena Bonham Carter is a wonderful actress who's proven time and time again that she will steal whatever scene she's in. Now, while she may be best known for playing the evil witch and possible girlfriend to the Dark Lord Bellatrix Lestrange in the much-loved Harry Potter series, it's her role in the 99 flick Fight Club that got her a spot on this list. Following the wrap-up of the film, Helena claims that she was forced to visit the hospital and was diagnosed with bronchitis, and it was due to the massive amounts of cancer sticks that she was inhaling throughout the flick. It turns out that she wasn't forced to do anything, actually, she did it to herself. While most sets tend to opt for fake props, especially when it comes to things that you set on fire and inhale, Helena decided to bring her bad habit onto set and into her character, reportedly lighting up a new Popeye every other take. While she may have claimed the illness to be caused by the filming, the reality is if she had just opted to do what everyone else does, that she'd be fine. Sure, maybe she did get sick, but she didn't get it because of the filming, she got it because she's method, man. Number 10, Ashton Kutcher, Pop Chips. Pop Chips are a yummy snack food that combine the best elements of popcorn and a chip, creating a unique and delicious flavor. The brand has been around for quite some time, but thanks to one particularly racy commercial from former Punk'd host Ashton Kutcher, it hasn't really grown in popularity. The commercial featured Ashton in several outlandish costumes, playing various men on a dating app looking for love. The first character that we are introduced to is Raj, a Bollywood producer. Yeah, within the first few seconds of this commercial, we are just blasted with Ashton in brownface, sporting a very stereotypical accent. Now, I don't know who at Pop Chips thought that this was a good idea for a commercial. What does it even have to do with the brand? Like, it would maybe make sense if one of the dudes being interviewed was a bag of Pop Chips or something, right? That would have at least been a little bit more entertaining, but instead this commercial was just so racially fueled that it was pulled from TV after only a week on air. Thankfully, Pop Chips were so delicious that they weathered the media storm and returned in a new commercial last year. And I'm gonna go have some after this video. Number 9, Kim Kardashian, Skims. Now, Kim Kardashian is no stranger to a brand collaboration. She has been the face of many products over the years in various markets. In 2022, she decided to create her own line of undergarments and star in a commercial showcasing what she made. While showing off the clothes' ability to stretch and form fit at the same time, her fingers suddenly distorted, becoming long and witch-like for a brief moment. When the ad was released, Kim did not receive the feedback that she was expecting. Instead of people focusing on the fact that she created underwear that molded to you, they pointed out the obvious edit on her hand and called her out for distorting her own image to appear more slender. The major backlash came from that, and everyone was pointing out the fact that Kim was trying to push an unrealistic body image on her fans, and the ad was pulled after just 5 days. According to the company, the mistake was actually a glitch and not an editing choice, but the commercial had to go through lots of hurdles before actually being filmed and released into the world. So if you're telling me that nobody was like, hey, look at the elastic man move she got going on right there. Number 8, LeBron James, Samsung. If you genuinely love a product and use it regularly, hey, why not partner with the company and make a little extra cash? LeBron James did just that in 2012 after starring in a commercial for Samsung advertising the Galaxy Note 2. While there isn't really much wrong with the commercial other than being a little bit longer than it should be, it was the aftermath that landed LeBron on this list. 2 years after releasing the commercial and continuing to rep the brand, his Galaxy Note rebooted one day suddenly and deleted every single thing on the device. Unlike most Apple products, Samsung actually charged its users to keep their information stored in a cloud, an option that James did not go for. James tweeted out that his phablet rebooted and deleted all of his things, giving him the sickest feeling that he had ever had. He later deleted the tweet, but not before being retweeted over 1,000 times. Of course, this hurt the sales of the product, and his commercial was ultimately pulled from air. Something tells me that LeBron has since switched to the iPhone. Number 7, Kendall Jenner, Pepsi. Sponsored brand deals can mean a lot of money for the people involved. Just look at every cologne on the planet. They hire someone to stand on a beach for 30 seconds and they make $1 million. Around 2017, Kendall Jenner decided to partner with the soda brand Pepsi to create a commercial that would act as both an ad and a PSA against hate. Does that make sense? The commercial consisted of hundreds of people from different parts of the world drinking Pepsi. Eventually, everyone comes together on the streets of what looks like New York, but it's not specified, and Kendall looks to the crowd, wipes off her makeup, and follows suit. The cringiest moment comes when the crowd of people appear to be at a standoff with police, and Kendall walks through the crowd and just hands an officer a can of Pepsi. He sips it, the crowd cheers, and then they swarm the cops who are suddenly cool with everything that's happening. The ad was meant to be a political statement following the passing over several African American men and women in the United States, aiming to bring people together. Which it did, but for like the wrong reasons. The world collectively just cringed and laughed at this absolute mess, forcing Kendall to drop an apology video on that season's premiere of Keeping Up with the Kardashians. She may have apologized, but we're never going to forget the weirdest commercial that's ever been filmed. Number 6, Timothée Chalamet, Chanel. As I said, perfume commercials have some of the dumbest advertisements, but they somehow end up making millions. I could do an entire top 30 list of cheesy and bad commercials, but let's keep things trendy and talk about Timothée Chalamet's recent Bleu de Chanel commercial. As with all perfume ads, you either say too much or you don't say one word at all, and in this case, it was nothing at all. Timothy was paid handsomely to walk on camera in slow motion and stare into the lens while the song Nights in White Satin by the Moody Blues begins to play. The commercial lasts about 30 seconds before it abruptly cuts to a bottle of the product and Timothy saying, Bleu de Chanel. But for some reason, he really puts an accent on it. He's like, Bleu de Chanel. The caption beneath the ad reads, a fragrance for the man who is deeply himself. What does that mean? What if said man is a stick-wielding maniac? What does that smell like? Tulips? That's the other thing about all these ads. They never actually explain what anything smells like. They just leave it up to our imagination. A fragrance for a man who is deeply himself. That sounds like Axe body spray to me. Bring on that dark chocolate spray. I don't know. Maybe I'm just a weirdo. I'm just a broke guy who can't appreciate good TV or something. Or maybe we're all on the same page. Hey, let us know in the comments how you feel about perfume ads. You know how I do. Number 5. Snoop Dogg, pocket like it's hot. Sometimes we want to have a nice big slice of pizza, but we don't have the time or money to afford one. These little frozen treats are cheap, easy to make, and chock full of delicious ingredients. So of course, one of its most avid consumers, rapper Snoop Dogg, decided to try his hand at the marketing business and partnered with the company in 2013 to create a music video commercial for Hot Pockets. That's when the world was gifted with Pocket Like It's Hot, a parody of Snoop Dogg's famous Drop It Like It's Hot. The music video itself is actually surprisingly entertaining. Snoop Dogg and DeStorm rap alongside a tiny little Hot Pocket and dance in a microwave. However, the actual food Hot Pockets can be a little bit hit or miss. Following the success of the commercial, Hot Pockets started flying off the shelves, but were apparently quickly put into the trash. People trying them for the first time were expecting this explosion of taste, but they were more than likely met with a burning mouth or cold pepperoni, and somehow at the same time. Honestly, this isn't the worst brand deal on the planet, I just thought it might be fun to share. Number 4. Kesha Catchers. She woke up in the morning feeling like P. Diddy, and apparently in the mood to throw some stuff. Pop singing sensation Kesha was performing at a concert in 2011 when she decided to throw some product placement at her crowd. There is a company in the world called Lifestyle, a name that may be familiar to some, especially if you've taken a certain educational course in school. You know the one I'm talking about with the birds and the bees and the cartoon nether bits. Kesha teamed up with the company to develop and print Kesha Catchers, a special edition tube with Kesha's face right on the front. Fans attending these concerts were promised to be covered in sweat and a little bit of no-no juice, maybe a little extra something if they were lucky, but the only thing the fans left her concerts with were plastic paper cuts on their hands from trying to catch these things. She was throwing them like ninja stars. Kylie Jenner, Kylie Cosmetics. Kylie Jenner is the youngest of the Kardashian clan and is super successful for her age. In 2019, she was on the cover of Forbes magazine for being the youngest self-made billionaire ever, following the successful partnership between herself and the cosmetic brand Ulta, a beauty salon company, which would allow her brand, previously only available online or in pop-up stores, to be on shelves in Ulta's 1,000 plus stores across the country. If you ever purchase this product or intend to in the future, let me just tell you exactly where it comes from so you might not do that. A lot of employees at the factory that mix and package these products complain about never being given proper safety equipment that, you would need to do the job. They were given hairnets, lab coats, and safety goggles. Okay, cool. That means that their hands and their faces are just completely exposed. Workers would regularly report migraines, chemical burns, all that fun stuff. And if that's not bad enough, they were actually forced to act as human test subjects for her new products. Kylie was always very proud about her company ever testing things on animals, but for some reason she feels that people aren't such a big deal. Number 2. Dan Aykroyd, Spicy Skull Juice. Dan Aykroyd is probably best known for his time on the live television sketch show Saturday Night Live, but a lot of you geeky people out there might know him as Ray Stantz from the Ghostbusters franchise. While he is best known in the acting world, he is one of the many celebrities who opted to go the no-no juice route and decided to start producing his own brand of an adult beverage that starts with a V and rhymes with latka. Since I can't actually say it, I will be referring to the product as Skull Juice for the rest of this entry, just saying that you should be able to visualize this product. Dan's Skull Juice can be purchased around the world. The novelty of the product is not that it's Dan Aykroyd Skull Juice, but it's the fact that the liquid comes in this large skull-shaped bottle that you've definitely seen in every college dorm or basement of someone's mother's house. While the product may be fun for the bottle, the actual juice inside of it is some of the worst stuff that most people have ever tasted, myself included. Good God, it's bad. There are already well-established brands that exist, and they are some people's party go-tos. I just want to clarify, I'm not telling you to go try brands or anything. In fact, take your money that you were gonna spend on the juice and go just buy a skull. Message me, I know a guy. Number 1, Nicki Minaj, Majesty. Despite having a clever name, this celebrity endorsement perfume has one of the weirdest bottle designs that I've personally ever seen. The design is based around one of her iconic looks on stage, sporting a pink hairstyle and bright bustier, plus the bottle has this weird golden face with just a little bit of detail, like just enough to be creepy, but not enough to be Nicki's exact face. It's not just the bottle though, it's the way she tries to sell it. The ad for this perfume sees Nicki chasing a majestic horse through a forest as her extravagant dress is slowly ripped apart by trees, and it ends with her approaching a castle in the woods where there sits a massive bottle of the product overhead. The men guarding the gate smell the fragrance on Nicki and open the gates. Again, weird commercial. What does it smell like though? Number 10, Worthy by Jada Pinkett Smith. Jada Pinkett Smith's new memoir was released, and thanks to an interview like a week beforehand, most of the good stuff was already leaked into the world. Jada's memoir, much like her actual life, is filled to the brim with things that really did not need to be said out loud. Apart from whoever does the audio book, if it's her, I will not be buying it. Before the book titled Worthy even hit the shelves, she revealed that herself and her husband Will Smith had been separated for 7 years, that her son Jaden introduced her to hallucinogens, that Tupac Shakur, the artist, proposed to her from jail, which a ton of people are saying is a lie, and Chris Rock asked her out on a date before she even confirmed that she was separated from Will Smith. And that's just what we know now. When the book actually hit the shelves, who knows what other juicy information will be inside. I haven't actually read this thing yet, but I'm thinking I might have to. For all we know, Jada is a Jedi who just keeps using mind tricks on the world, so we're like, oh man, this is really funny that they've been separated for 7 years, instead of being like, well, this is tragic. Hollywood really should have closed the door on this woman a long time ago. I'm gonna find a way to listen to this book without paying for it because she does not deserve any money, but I really need to know a little bit more about Will Smith's secrets. Like, what kind of toothbrush does that guy use? Number 9, A Sure Thing by Snooki. Fans of the Jersey Shore, you doing okay? Because you need a hug. There are a solid portion of people in this world who would love to read this book. If you watched The Jersey Shore and you loved Snooki, then this might be a good book for you. If you are anyone else at all, maybe go find something else because this is not for you. Snooki decided to sit down and write a fictional tale based on her life in the Jersey Shore. Instead of writing about her time on the show, she details a story of 2 friends looking for a good time during a summer at, you guessed it, the Grand Canyon. No, it's the Jersey Shore, of course. You know what they say, write what you know. Fans of Snooki were happy to pick this one up and give it a whirl. However, a large portion of reviews are super negative because people thought that they were buying a biography. Snooki's face is on the cover of this book, but once you open the first page, you are sucked into the world of Gia and Bella, who are basically just Snooki and JWoww. I would love to discuss, but it's a bit too graphic for the interweb. I want to point out that there is no audio version of this book yet, but the minute it goes on sale, I am going to be adding it to my library. Number 8, I'm Glad My Mom's Gone by Jeanette McCurdy. Jeanette is of course the woman who played Sam on the hit Nickelodeon series iCarly, and later in her own spin-off with Ariana Grande called Sam and Cat. Jeanette actually decided to stop acting permanently in 2017 to focus on her life and her side gigs, including writing her own memoir detailing her life called I'm Glad My Mom Passed Away. I wish I could say the real title, but it rhymes with fried, and I can't say it. In the memoir, Jeanette reveals a ton of behind-the-scenes secrets about the acting industry and, of course, her own personal experiences. Of course, she mentions iCarly and Nickelodeon a few times, something that she was actually asked not to do. Nick executives offered Jeanette $300,000 to not say anything negative about the program or her time on set. Well, she said heck no to that offer, and wrote whatever she wanted to. For those who don't know, Nickelodeon was actually involved in a bit of a scandal surrounding the creator of many Nickelodeon shows, Dan Schneider, who was referred to in the book only as the creator. I won't go too deep into details because it's not too hard to piece together what he might have done considering the channel he worked for. The book is divided into 2 sections, before and after, with the stories taking place before and after the passing of Jeanette's mother. She revealed a ton of information on Dan, Nickelodeon, and her life as a whole, but if you want to know all of that, you gotta leave a like down below so I know that you care and we do an actual breakdown. Number 7, Rebels, City of Indra by Kylie and Kendall Jenner. Stepping away from the world of memoirs for a moment, it's worth mentioning that 2 Kardashian clan members decided to team up for this entry. Rebels, City of Indra is a fictional story taking place in a world of the far future in the city of Indra, a world with two faces, a floating paradise and a nightmare on the ground. The book was written by the team of Kylie and Kendall Jenner and was meant to be the next big young adult book like Maze Runner or The Hunger Games. Instead, what the world received was a literal pile of trash that apparently contains interwoven stories that make no sense and a really bad and cringy twist, and it's only 342 pages. Only. This steampunk-centric novel was not the fantasy feature that the young Jenners were hoping for. The reviews for this book are dreadful. Even people who have been following this family since day one didn't like it. I unfortunately did not have a chance to read this one before scripting, but part of me kinda wants to now, just so I can know how terrible it actually is, and if it's worth adapting into a miniseries. Number 6. Choreography by Corey Feldman. Corey became a Hollywood legend before he even hit his 20s. In the 80s, this man was in everything. The Goonies, Lost Boys, Gremlins, and of course Stand By Me. But as time went on, Corey became less and less involved in Hollywood, and it was revealed that this was due to something dark happening behind the scenes. In his memoir, Choreography, Feldman alleged that he had been mistreated by many men in Hollywood for a large portion of his career. Although Feldman asked the Los Angeles police to look into his claims, they had to drop the case due to the expired statute of limitations. In the memoir, he wrote that the people who did things to himself and his former best friend / co-star Corey Haim were still out there and working in Hollywood without a care in the world. While the Me Too movement did expose a ton of nasty people in Hollywood, it seems that there is still plenty of bad apples to choose from. One name that was tossed around in the memoir was former 2.5 Men menace Charlie Sheen, claiming that Sheen had forced himself onto Corey Haim on the set of the 1986 film Lucas. Again, something that could not be brought to court because it took place so long ago. Number 5, Troublemaker by Leah Remini. Leah Remini is probably best known for her role on the sitcom King of Queens as the wife of Kevin James, but some may know her best as an author. In 2016, Leah released a memoir titled Troublemaker, Surviving Hollywood and Weird Science. It doesn't say weird science, but I can't say what she actually does because the internet gets mad when we do. The memoir is a collection of stories chronicling her experience from her career highs to her real-life lows. The book also contains a ton of information on the work of L. Ron Hubbard, who is usually associated with the group who, again, I can't say their name because they get mad. While her book is not the worst thing out there, as you might have figured out already, it does contain a ton of information that many found to be negative towards her former beliefs. Well, that's because she actually left her church a long time ago after she started asking too many questions about the logistics. Many people tried to denounce the things that she wrote in her book, mainly because she calls so much into question and makes good points. Points that I really want to make too, but I can't because the internet is... Why is the internet like this? Number 4, Selfish by Kim Kardashian. Of course, there is more than one Kardashian on our list. Are you nuts? These people are the best. Everything they touch turns into something. Kim decided to write her own book called Selfish, a book filled with photos and stories from cover to cover. It includes a ton of selfies of Kim, including travel pictures, family photos, and of course, swimsuit pics. The book also contains stories about several A-list celebrities like Jennifer Lopez, Lala Anthony, and of course her ex Kanye West. While the book did receive positive reviews online, a lot of people just bought it for the pictures inside. Needless to say, wholesome family photos are not the only selfies present in this book. Number 3, It's Not About the Bike by Lance Armstrong. Of course, disgraced Tour de France winner Lance Armstrong would feel that it's necessary to detail his life in written form. The book was released in 2000 before it was revealed that he was using chemical training wheels to win his races. For those who may not remember, Lance won 7 Tour de France medals, but after some digging and a very candid Oprah interview, he revealed that he did in fact cheat and take performance-enhancing narcotics to win the races. But we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about the biographical book detailing Lance's childhood to his 1999 Tour de France victory. In the book, he actually addresses the allegations that had been surrounding him at the time, lying on every single page. He claimed that he would never do any narcotics and that he was a pure man, pure of soul. Well, of course that was not true, and this guy lied his way to the top, only to be stripped of all of his medals and left on the side of the road as a disgrace in the cycling community. Number 2, Star by Pamela Anderson. Pamela Anderson is known for many things: Baywatch, modeling, and recently for being makeup-free and looking fantastic. But she is one of many celebrities who felt the need to detail their lives in a written format. For Pam, it was Star a novel. The book is a fictionalized retelling of her rise to stardom, exaggerating large portions for story. Now, while this doesn't sound like a terrible idea, considering Pam has had quite the rocky rise to the top, the reviews are horrible. Her ghostwriter used a ton of run-on sentences, made a ton of grammatical errors, and wrote about some truly disturbing relationship dynamics to describe Pam's life. Even hardcore fans of the Hollywood starlet wanted to throw this thing back into the bargain bin where it came from. The book was published in 2004, so I'm thinking it might be time for a part 2, or maybe even just a straight up fictional story written by Pam herself. No ghostwriters, just Pamela and an old typewriter. Number 1, A Peace of Mind by Charlie Sheen. So in doing research for Charlie's book, I found out that most websites don't even bother to take the time to write a description about this thing because it's so bad. This isn't just your average biopic book, no, this is actually just a series of poems and just random limericks written by Charlie Sheen while he was definitely under the influence of No Snow. It's almost like he jammed his face into a pile of it and just went to town. Now, I'm not gonna go too deep into this one. If you find a copy, I recommend you buy it just to see what kind of thoughts this man had rattling around in his brain. Like, considering his history with substances, it's probably not that hard to figure out the meaning behind some of his poems. Roses are red, violets are blue, I am God! Number 10, Leah Remini. Morning talk shows seem to have a new host popping in and out every season. Shows like The View and The Talk are known for having a revolving door policy when it comes to their hosts. For one reason or another, many hosts have been fired over the years, from on-screen altercations to backstage drama. For King of Queens alumni Leah Remini, she was fired due to an issue stemming from fellow host Sharon Osbourne. Remini premiered in season 1 of the show, demonstrating blunt honesty and a certain laid-back style of conversation. According to Leah, Sharon Osbourne did not like that at all. Not only was Leah fired after the first season, but her fellow co-host Holly Robinson Pete was also let go for little to no reason. However, Remini posted on her Twitter page calling Sharon out for having too much power on the show, alleging that she knew Sharon had a hand in herself and Holly being let go from the program. Leah claimed that herself and Holly were just too street for Sharon's liking. They weren't funny enough or awkward enough to make good TV. Sharon has denied those allegations to this day, and no one has spoken to each other in person since the firing. Number 9, Shanine Doherty. Unfortunately for Shanine, she gained quite the reputation in Hollywood for being fired due to an issue with her co-star. She may or may not be making another appearance on this list. I guess you'll just have to stick around and find out. For the first entry though, we're looking back to a very popular series, teen drama 90210. The series following the lives of the Walsh family as they move from Minneapolis to Beverly Hills. Doherty played the character Brenda Walsh, with her character eventually befriending several students at Beverly Hills High, including Donna Martin, played by Tori Spelling. The series was a hit after its initial season, however, with increased popularity came massive ego boosts. Doherty and Spelling started clashing on set all of the time, adding additional drama to the production team that they really did not need. Considering Tori's father, Aaron Spelling, was the producer on the show, it's pretty simple to piece together what happened. Doherty claims that she was officially let go for having a haircut that messed up the continuity of the show, but a wig could have fixed that, so you better believe Tori Spelling told her papa to boot her from the series. Number 8, Lindsay Lohan. In the early 2000s, Lindsay Lohan faced a ton of public scandals, but one that's not talked about often enough actually took place behind the scenes of a TV show called Ugly Betty. Lohan was a guest star on the show in the 3rd season, playing Kimmy Keegan. Kimmy was supposed to stick around for 6 total episodes, but eventually that number was shrunken down to 4, the reason being that her co-star and the lead of the show, America Ferrera, just did not get along with Lindsay on set. According to America, and actually quite a few of the Ugly Betty crew, Lindsay would show up with an entourage of people and usually under the influence of herbs and spices, and the production crew had to literally repaint her dressing room when she left because it was so messed up. One crew member alleged that she would cut images of her own face out of magazines and tabloid articles like she were making a collage or something. That sounds a little made up, but not out of the realm of possibility. America claims that one scene took over 30 takes to get right because they just kept flubbing their lines. Lindsay's team of buddies have been adamant that America had too much power and was the sole reason that she was asked to leave the show. Unfortunately, if you do bad things and enough people know about it, karma just kinda comes back around. Number 7, Selma Blair. It's funny that this entry involves Charlie Sheen getting a woman fired when he himself has been fired from several projects and for a few reasons. After being fired from 2.5 Men, Sheen returned to the acting world, headlining his own show called Anger Management. It premiered in 2012 with the cast featuring Hellboy alumni Selma Blair, playing his colleague and friend with benefits on the show. However, Sheen's terrible behavior continued to haunt him from his 2.5 Men days. Blair was very vocal on her problems with Charlie, especially his messy work ethic. Charlie heard about this and he was having none of it. He threatened to quit the show if Blair was going to remain a part of the cast. Sheen got his way and Blair was let go after starring in just 54 episodes. The show didn't last long though. Who would have guessed that a messy actor being the lead was a bad idea? The show was ultimately cancelled in 2014. Number 6. Aaron Hayes. The King of Queens was arguably the peak of Kevin James and his comedy. For 9 seasons, people tuned in to see Kevin and his on-screen wife, Leah Remini, deliver entertaining banter and genuinely memorable moments as their chemistry together was electric. Kevin made another move into the world of sitcoms in 2016 when the show Kevin Can't Wait premiered. Another family-style sitcom, only this time Kevin was paired with actress Aaron Hayes. While she was not a bad actor in the slightest, it was a special guest appearance from Leah Remini that sealed her fate. She appeared in the season 1 finale and their chemistry was still so strong that it was announced that Hayes' character would be written off the show and literally had her character tragically pass away. At the same time, Remini was announced as a new series regular beginning in season 2. Though the show cited that firing Aaron was purely a creative choice and in no way was reflected in her abilities as a performer, the firing then sudden hiring of his co-star from the past is just a little bit of a coincidence. Just a little bit. Aaron has never given a reason to believe that the studio was lying and has continued to have a pretty solid career, but luckily for her, season 2 tanked and the show was ultimately cancelled in 2018. Number 5. Bruce Willis. Before Bruce quit the acting business for good, he was part of some of the best action films of all time. The Try Hard series, The Fifth Element, and of course the first 2 Expendables movies. The Expendables is a stellar action series that sees Hollywood's most legendary leading men come together in one epic showdown. The first film was written and directed by Rocky himself, Sylvester Stallone, and he called in all of the favors. The cast included Jet Li, Jason Statham, Dolph Lundgren, and so many more, including Bruce Willis. Unfortunately, he was fired from the 3rd film in the franchise following a dispute with Sylvester involving his contract. Before the truth broke, Sylvester tweeted that he had great news, Bruce Willis was out and Harrison Ford was in for Expendables 3. And a few minutes later, he followed it up by simply writing greedy and lazy, a sure formula for career failure. And it was pretty obvious that something went down behind the scenes, and it was rumored that Willis had asked for over $1 million per day to film the 3rd movie. Despite their off-screen argument and Bruce's recasting, the two were able to reconnect and squash their beef for good. Number 4. Stacey Dash. While a ton of firing stories end with allegations, the situation between Lisa Ray McCoy and Stacey Dash is actually pretty straightforward. McCoy had Dash fired from their show. That's it. During the first season of the VH1 series Single Ladies, the 2 actresses clashed on basically everything, which led to McCoy taking action. She admitted to having a hand in getting her co-star fired before the start of the 2nd season. In an interview with Vibe, she stated that in Hollywood she learned to be a boss. She had to say to Stacey, "Get your mother flippin' finger out of my face," which was the final breaking point. For the 2nd season of the show, a replacement was brought in for Miss Dash, who went on to star in some other stuff. Number 3. Rose McGowan. So let's talk about the show Charmed for a second. It was a solid series that was on air for almost 10 years. The series followed 3 sisters that discover they are descendants of a line of female witches and are destined to fight against the forces of evil. It was a fun show, however, just because you play sisters on set doesn't mean that you're going to be close in real life. Rose McGowan and Alyssa Milano had a very public altercation that resulted in a little incident on set being shared with the entire world. Rose claimed that Alyssa threw a fit in front of the crew, yelling that they didn't pay her enough to do the things she was doing, and only she didn't say the thing she was doing, she said a swear word. She called Alyssa's behavior appalling and claimed that she cried every time the show would get renewed for another season because it just meant more time on a toxic set with Alyssa. Alyssa never shared her own comments on the situation, basically confirming what she was being accused of. Number 2. Bill Murray. Sony's big first move into the world of Charlie's Angels was actually fantastic. The first round of films starred Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu as the titular angels. They were filled with action, a little bit of comedy, and just one of the strangest performances ever delivered from Crispin Glover. I mean, one of. That dude does a lot of weird stuff. One interesting addition to the cast was the inclusion of Ghostbusters alumni Bill Murray as Bosley, their boss. Apparently the set was anything but a comedy though, after Bill found out that a scene was rewritten while he was away. In an interview with the news outlet Deadline, Lucy Liu spoke up about her time on set and the situation with Bill. Apparently Bill was away for a family event when a scene needed to be refilmed. Instead of using a stand-in, it was decided that the scene could be filmed without Murray's character even being involved, so it went on without him. When he returned to find that the changes were made while he was gone, he was furious and just shouted at everyone, including Lucy. At first, she wasn't sure why he was aiming his comments at her. She didn't do anything, she didn't write it, right? She asked if Bill was specifically speaking to her, and apparently that just set him off. She decided to speak out on Bill's behavior on set, and he was ultimately written out of the sequel. Lucy is awesome for speaking her mind despite being a relatively unknown actor at the time, and so far she seems pretty glad that Bill's career is suffering for it, because Lucy was just the first of many celebrities to comment on his behavior, but we'll talk about that another time. Number 1. Janet Hubert. Will Smith got his big break in the acting world thanks to his time on Fresh Prince of Bel-Air. The show followed him as the titular prince living with his wealthy family in Bel-Air, surrounded by cousins, uncles, and Aunt Viv. In season 1, Aunt Viv was played by a woman named Janet Hubert Witten, but as a lot of people know, in season 2 she was recasted after an on-set feud with Will went a bit too far. According to Will, Janet just viewed him as an antagonist in her life. She had been in a business for years when suddenly Will Smith popped in. She held this tinge of jealousy towards him because he just kind of came to town, got a job, and boom, that was it. Well, hey, that's what happens when you're good at your job, right? She was trying to convince the producers to give her character more time and allow her to breathe, but they said no, because it's not the Aunt Viv show, it's the Fresh Prince show. She fought back hard, but it was ultimately decided that she was going to be asked to sit out of the rest of the series and be replaced by Daphne Maxwell Reid, who we all know and love as the real Aunt Viv. Number 10. Michael Keaton. Growing up, Michael Keaton was my Batman. The first 2 Tim Burton directed Batman movies are legendary, and I'm never going to look at Danny DeVito and not see the Penguin. Okay, it's just not gonna happen. One thing I actually never knew though was that Michael was once married to his Batman Returns co-star, Michelle Pfeiffer. In fact, Michael actually tried to get Michelle fired from the project after learning that she had been casted as not only a villain, but as his love interest as well. While the split before production was apparently amicable, it was still an uncomfortable situation for Michael to be in romantic scenes with someone that he had, well, already been romantic with off-screen. At the time, Michael was also trying to get back with an ex-girlfriend and felt that Michelle's presence might ruin his chances. Well, as we all know, he was unsuccessful in getting her fired, the project went great, and the movie was great. So the only bad thing that ever happened was DC telling Tim Burton that his Batman 3 ideas were stupid. Hey man, Robin Williams would have made an excellent Riddler, you jerks. Number 9. John Stamos. John Stamos is not just a fun name to say, but is the man to blame for Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen being absent from the Full House revival Fuller House. A lot of fans of the original series were well aware of why the Olsen twins never returned, but for those of you who don't know, John actually tried to get them fired from the original series when they were still young. And by young, I mean before they were even a full year old. From the very beginning of the sitcom, Stamos complained that Mary-Kate and Ashley were very difficult children to deal with. Apparently, if one wasn't crying and screaming, then the other one was. Oh no, a baby screaming and crying uncontrollably. Now that is a unique situation. His dislike for the Olsens forced the producers to bring in a new set of twins, and these are John's real complaints that prevented those twins from taking over permanently. Number 1, they had red hair. Number 2, in his words, they were unattractive babies, and he knew that he made a mistake. That is an awful thing to say about anyone at any age. After realizing that, the Olsens were just kids and that all the other ones were just too ugly to be on TV, that the Olsen twins would be brought back. What's funny is that the studio eventually wanted to fire Ashley Olsen only and keep Mary-Kate, but John actually stepped in and blocked that call. Seems that over the years that he turned into something like an uncle for the twins. For any Mary-Kate and Ashley fans who are just curious as to where they are, they took a break from acting permanently and have been making waves in the fashion industry. Pretty neat. Number 8. Tom Hanks. Who would have guessed the guy that is basically America's dad would be the cause of a man being fired from one of his film sets? Turner and Hooch was a wonderful buddy cop movie starring a young Tom Hanks and this big beautiful doggo named Beasley. When the film first started its production, Henry Winkler, aka the Fonz, aka Barry Zuckerkorn, was the director. As the years have gone by, Henry has always said the same thing about the project. He got along much better with Beasley than he did with Mr. Hanks. The set was plagued with creative differences between the men who would argue constantly on set. Henry's directing style just clashed with Tom's performance style time and time again. After only 13 days on set, there was an altercation between Tom and Henry that left Henry out of work, and Roger Spottiswoode stepped in to take his place. Number 7. Alec Baldwin. In 2013, Alec Baldwin was attached to star in a Broadway production of the show Orphans alongside Transformers alumni Shia LaBeouf. Now, from day one of rehearsals, Shia and Baldwin were at each other's throats. Shia's problem was that Alec was never off script. This was something that he considered to be very unprofessional. Shia has since claimed that he was so nervous about the show that he made sure to memorize every single line he had before setting foot on stage on day one. His methods were not reciprocated by Alec, who just kind of showed up with a coffee in one hand and the script in the other one, planning to rehearse in the moment. Well, Shia was furious and he apparently yelled at Alec to learn his lines right then, right there. He said, "Whoa, he's a lead, what's the deal? Why aren't you better at this?" Well, after a couple of weeks and one particularly rough day where Shia blew up at Alec in front of a ton of cast and crew, Alec took 5 and he had a meeting with the producers. He said that if Shia wasn't let go, that he was going to quit the project. Producers caved and Shia was canned. In the tabloid, they claimed creative differences, but Shia later shared his side, clearly upset with being dropped as if he meant nothing to the show. Number 6. Seinfeld cast. Now, for this entry, there is no one cast member that could be singled out as the individual who tried to get Heidi Swedberg, aka Susan, fired from the series. In the season 7 finale of Seinfeld, spoiler alert, Jason Alexander's character George Costanza is delivered the news that his wife Susan has suddenly passed away. George is thrilled as he's been wanting to leave Susan for a while now, but it turns out off screen, Jason was just as excited. So were Jerry Seinfeld, Michael Richards, and Julia Louis-Dreyfus, who made up the other 3 main cast members. According to Jason, he found it difficult to play off of Susan, claiming that there just wasn't a lot of chemistry between them. And as I said, this was a feeling that was shared with the entire cast. Julia Louis-Dreyfus said that it was impossible to have fun with her and her character, and that the producers were planning to write her off at some point in the near future. Well, the gripes of the cast were heard, and her character passes away from licking the glue on cheap wedding invitation envelopes that George insisted they purchase. It is very funny and it's a great way to get a character written off of a show, but it's just unfortunate for Heidi that the entire cast was like, she's not a vibe. Number 5. Jason Momoa. It's no secret that filming Aquaman and its sequel was a bit of a sensitive task. For starters, Amber Heard not only played Jason's love interest in the film, but she was also dealing with the Johnny Depp defamation trial, so a decision had to be made if she was going to continue being involved with DC or if they would just recast her entirely. Well, it turns out that that conundrum was not because of the trial, but it was actually just because of her terrible chemistry with Jason Momoa. Amber Heard has always felt jammed into the DC universe, but we could go on about that forever. Ultimately, the studio never went forward with firing Amber, and it was all thanks to the CEO of Tesla and her former lover, Elon Musk. Back in 2019, Elon had one of his litigators send this scorched earth letter to Warner Brothers, basically threatening to tear the house down if Amber was left out of the sequel. Warner Brothers caved and moved forward. Imagine being so geeky and so rich that you could tell an entire studio what to do for you. You would make millions of movies just for yourself. Despite keeping her job, Amber has continued to hurl allegations against her co-star Jason Momoa to this day, claiming that he was dressing like Johnny Depp on purpose on set to mess with her. But as I've mentioned in previous news breakdowns on that topic, Jason Momoa always looks like Johnny Depp. It's just what some people in Hollywood look like. Number 4. Sylvester Stallone. Richard Gere is one of those actors that doesn't really act. Sometimes people just get hired for films because they have the face for it or the style. For Richard, he did not have enough class and moxie to keep a handle on his role in the film Lords of the Flatbush. He was casted to star alongside Rocky himself, himself, Sylvester Stallone, and according to Sly, these two did not get along. Their beef was strong and long-lasting through the entire production, until it finally came to a head when one day Richard was just a little bit too into one scene and grabbed Sylvester aggressively by the collar. When Sly told him to lay off, he laid in instead. Now that scene was being filmed on Coney Island, so when the actors took a minute to take a break, they tried to, well, break each other. Sly was eating a hot dog alone in his car. Sounds very peaceful, but suddenly Richard stormed in to join him with like half of a chicken dripping in mustard apparently. Despite Sly's warning about mustard, like this whole thing started because of mustard. It dripped all over his pants, and in true Rocky fashion, he elbowed Richard in the face and threw him out of the car. The altercation resulted in Richard being fired from the project. Oh no, they had to decide between Richard Gere and Sylvester Stallone. I wonder how quick that meeting was. Number 3, Ryan Gosling. The Notebook is considered to be one of the greatest romantic movies ever made. Oddly enough though, the on-screen couple never got along during the shoot. They would fight with each other on set all the time and seemed to have completely opposite ideas on how basically everything should play out. One day in particular was pretty exciting for anyone who wasn't involved. Ryan called over the director and demanded that Rachel be replaced by another actress to read her lines with him. In front of 150 crew members, he claimed that Rachel just wasn't giving him anything to work with, and they would just constantly yell at each other between takes. Eventually, Ryan asked the director privately if it might be possible to restart the project with a new leading lady, and needless to say, he was laughed out of the room. As time went on, they finished the project, and the two actually dated for almost 2 years. The Notebook is now a classic, and Ryan Gosling is just Ken. Number 2, America Ferrera. In the early 2000s, Lindsay Lohan faced a ton of public scandals, but one that's not talked about often enough actually took place behind the scenes of a little show called Ugly Betty. Lohan was a guest star on the show in the 3rd season, playing Kimmy Keegan. Now, Kimmy was supposed to stick around for 6 total episodes, but that number was actually shrunken down to 4. The reason being was that her co-star and the lead of the show, America Ferrera, did not get along with Lindsay Lohan. According to America and several of the Ugly Betty crew, Lindsay would show up with an entourage of people, usually under the influence of herbs and spices, and the production crew had to repaint her dressing room when she left because it was just so bad in there. One crew member alleged that she would cut images of her own face out of magazines and tabloid articles like she was making a collage or something creepy like that. America claims that one scene took over 30 takes to get right because she flubbed her lines over and over again. Lindsay's team of buddies have been adamant that America had just too much power and was the sole reason that she was asked to leave the show. Unfortunately, if you do bad things and enough people know about it, hey, karma comes around. And at number 1, Lucy Liu. Sony's first foray into the world of Charlie's Angels was a massive success when it released, starring Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu as the main angels. The movie was filled with action, a little bit of comedy, and one of the strangest performances ever delivered from Crispin Glover. Seriously, that guy needs help. One interesting addition to the cast was the inclusion of Ghostbusters alumni Bill Murray as the man behind the mic, Mr. Bosley. Apparently, the set was anything but a comedy after Bill found out there was a scene rewritten without his knowledge. In an interview with the news outlet Deadline, Lucy Liu spoke up about her time on set and the situation surrounding herself and Bill. Apparently, Bill was away for a family event when a scene needed to be reshot for the movie, but instead of using a stand-in, they realized they could just film the scene without Bill Murray in it. So it went on, and everything was fine. When he returned to find the change was made while he was gone, he was furious. He reportedly shouted at like half of the crew, including Lucy herself. At first, she wasn't sure why he was aiming so many of his comments directly at her. She didn't write the scene, she wasn't the director, but she asked if Bill was talking to her, which sent him into a full-blown meltdown. She decided to speak out on Bill's behavior on set, and he was ultimately written out of the sequel. Lucy is proud for speaking her mind, because at the time she was a relatively unknown actor and is glad that Bill's career seems to have suffered for it, because hey, Lucy was just the first of many people to comment on his behavior, but we'll leave that for another video.